to turn things over to Gail Beardmore. Gail has been our board president for some time. She's an awesome boss, and she's just a great, great person. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Carol, thanks. I was really hoping we weren't going to read the whole impact report. Thank you for that. But you guys should read it, really, because it's kind of what we've accomplished here. And it's pretty impressive if you take a moment to read it. And as Carol mentioned, all the board members are listed on here. So we're going to just do the boring meeting stuff right now. And I need to officially call the meeting to order. I have no idea what time it is, so somebody can determine what that is.
5:35.
5:35, cool. So there also are minutes on the back of this. And I am going to, hopefully you guys have read through these minutes. It's when we were at, where were we?
Seesaw.
We were at Seesaw's Lodge last year. So these are the minutes from there. So I'm going to assume that everyone has read those, and I'm going to ask for a motion to
Make
approve.
a motion.
Thank you, Art. And a second. Thank you, Kevin. So those minutes are approved. And now I'd like to introduce Art Randolph. He is going to give us a little synopsis of our financial situation.
In a word, the state of your chamber is good. I do want to call out one item, number 3 in the impact report. It's giving a short shrift for all the work that the chamber did after the July 10th flood last year. The chamber raised $1.5 million in funding relief and distributed that for Black River Good Neighbors, the Crown Point Board of Realtors for the residential, and for the businesses through the chamber itself, in partnership with a fiscal agent, the Rotary Club of Ludlow. Just a fantastic job. $500,000 raised, an organization of 1.5 full-time equivalents.
Wow.
The highlights of last year, total income, and this is fiscal year, January to December, a little boring reading, sorry. $349,000. Expenses exceeded that after additional income of $6,000. So we're a not-for-profit, we're supposed to run at zero, a little bit of an expense, but we raised $500,000 while doing that. So I think it's forgiven, and that's really some one-time events that spilled over from the prior year into this year. We're in very good stead and in very good hands, and congratulations, Carol. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. So the next order of business is to actually nominate the slate of the board members. Now that is also on your program, and if you all have no one to add to that slate, do I hear a motion to approve this slate?
So moved.
Kevin. Kevin, do I hear a second? I heard it.
Over here.
Right there, thank you.
Did you get this?
Who was the second?
Matthew Fitzgerald?
Thank you.
Matthew Fitzgerald.
Thank you. So, any discussion about this at all? So that nominations for that slate are approved. Thank you. And Carol is here to introduce our speaker.
Yeah, and just a comment on our slate of board members. So we're renominating board members, with the exception of 3 who couldn't continue for different reasons. We have open positions, so we will continue to work on that. Specifically, Garrison from Smitty's is no longer a member, so making sure Chester is covered, Our representative with Jamaica Cottage Shop is no longer a member. That's in Londonderry, so that would be another key spot to cover. So if you have interest going forward, let us know. So our meetings are generally about an hour every other month, and there's plenty of homework, of course, but you have some paid staff working really hard on your behalf, so the meetings are really productive. Moving on to the speaker, are we all set, Heather, do you think? So Heather Pelham is our Commissioner of Tourism and Marketing for the state of Vermont. She does a whole lot, and I should have prepared a bio or something for you, Heather. I just appreciate her making the time to come to Okemo Valley and talk with all of us. I know that Heather drives a hard bargain in terms of making sure state of Vermont is front and center for tourism. That tourism certainly is our mainstay in Okemo Valley. Heather, we're all set for you if you are, and thank you to Art.
Thank you, Carol, for inviting me down this evening, and just really thrilled to be here. So as Carol said, my name is Heather Pelham. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Tourism and Marketing. So that is, excuse me, I might just grab some more liquid. We are within the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. We have a staff of 12. It is our duty to promote the state, and that is not just for visitation, but also for relocation as well, for new residents. So we do a lot with what I would say is a lean budget in state government. We only have $4.5 million, which I was talking to a few folks just as I was introducing myself around the room for, excuse me, for context. That $4.5 million actually includes a base budget increase we received for the first time last year, specifically for relocation marketing work. So our tourism budget has been $3.5 million for probably the past 10 years. And I think everybody knows that tourism is a competitive, it's a competitive business.
You got it.
It's just like a dry throat, but tourism is a very competitive business, and our neighboring states have budgets that are many times more than ours. The state of New Hampshire has a $10 million budget. The state of Maine has a $17 million budget. And they have had budget levels like that for years. So we've been competing with 3.5 over the past X amount of time. So I would just say that, as with most things, Vermont's is small and mighty, but we do our best. And that's what I'm here tonight to sort of talk to you folks a little bit more about what we do to promote tourism for the state. And just as like a baseline figure for folks to think about, visitor spending is a $3 billion industry for the state. I have some more economic impact information to share with you folks, but I thought that I would start just to talk a little bit about this kind of interesting, once-in-a-lifetime event that we had a few months ago. You might recall the sky went dark, this thing called the total solar eclipse. It was an amazing opportunity for Vermont to actually have a very impactful, I would say, brand positive experience. I realized that this area was not in the path of totality, but talk about like an amazing opportunity to really show folks, what kind of an amazing experience they can have in Vermont. The total solar eclipse was second to none. So I thought I would just start there and give you guys some idea about what that looked like in terms of our visitors. So we calculate, I'm going to get a little bit more, that there was about 225,000 people in the state that weekend. We knew that a lot of folks did come up just for the day, so we had about half of our visitors who just came out for the day, but we had just about the same amount who actually stayed 2 nights or more, so people really did consider Vermont as a destination. Most of those folks, I think it's 43%, stayed in hotels, B&Bs, or other overnight accommodations, and that was split then most of the other folks stay with family and friends. And I thought it was interesting too, this all comes from a survey we did with folks who had signed up to receive information about the eclipse. So it's a little bit of a self-selected audience, but from that, it's not surprising that many folks, had been here before, but I think it's interesting that there was about 20% of folks who hadn't been to Vermont in 5 or 10 years. So it's just a great reminder that, it's never too late to kind of reinforce that brand affinity that folks have for Vermont, because we know what a special place it can be and how it gets into your heart. So we have now completed a preliminary economic impact of what kind of spending the eclipse brought in. This is statewide. We will have some more information coming out regionally. But from what we figure to be 175 incremental visitors, so the difference there is that in a normal weekend in April, we would expect there to be about 50,000 visitors in the state. So the incremental lift from the eclipse was 175,000 visitors, who altogether brought in just shy of $35 million in visitor spending. Not bad. We should do that again, right? Yeah. So that is split with $13.7 million in lodging. Yeah, we're working on it. Yeah, if I could move the heaven and the stars, I would. So $3.7 million in lodging, 10.7 food and beverage, 5.5 recreation and entertainment, 3.7 retail, and 1.3 in that TRA category there, which is transportation. So we did work with a company called Tourism Economics to put this information together. As I said, they're doing a little bit more of a deeper dive with another company I'm going to refer to in a minute in terms of where that was spread out regionally. Again, you would expect that a lot of the economic impact was concentrated in the northern part of the state where the path of totality was. But it is interesting to see it was not all in Chittenden County. There were a lot of folks who went up to Burlington, but it was really encouraging to see the amount of folks who went to St. Johnsbury, to Newport, and areas like that where that might not have been on their list. I can tell you the folks in St. Johnsbury in particular were really thrilled. They figured they had about 10,000 people who came to their town and had many conversations, the same kind of conversations I'm sure that you folks have when a visitor comes to be like, I had no idea this place existed. I'm so excited. I can't wait to come back. So that's very encouraging. But some of the other things that we have learned through this is, number one, yeah, there are a lot of people here. So that pink bar all the way on the right, that is the number of card holders that were in Vermont. So we have never seen a spike like that. But we were really looking, another eclipse would be great. It's not going to happen. So trying to think about, what kind of context can we put on what we've learned from this event. We're looking back 2 years here, and the smaller green bars, and I hope folks can see this, but we're just looking, those smaller green bars are previous Aprils. So we're looking at about 5 times more people who are normally here in April, card numbers. But what's really kind of encouraging to see is those yellow bars, that's October. That's the second weekend in October. So if you look at those spikes that we see in visitation around fall foliage, it is very significant. And when we look at revenue and not just the number of cardholders, you can see that actually the amount of money that came into the state last year, Saturday, Indigenous Peoples Weekend, was more than we got from the eclipse. So to me, I have a whole new appreciation of fall foliage. Not that we don't love our leaf peepers, but it's great to see. That we don't have to depend on an eclipse to bring visitors to Vermont. Hopefully we will reap that, that brand positive experience, as I said, for years to come. But when we look at, the kind of economic impact that visitors bring to our state in any given fall, not only are the spikes higher than we saw for the eclipse, but you can see that they span over, a 7 to 10 day period. So that's really pretty exciting. In terms of other economic data, I just wanted to I don't know how much of this is familiar to folks or not, but for leisure and hospitality, this is this bar over here. This is the employment. 11.3% of Vermonters are employed in leisure and hospitality. That's over 34,000 Vermonters are employed in the visitor economy. And as you can see, that is more than you'll see in, I'll try and point some of these out. Now can I do this? Ooh, yeah, here we go. But I didn't memorize the colors. So retail, 11.6. I think this is professional business services, 10.9. So it's really, and manufacturing. We love our manufacturing, 9.3%. So leisure and hospitality employs more folks than these other sectors that we talk about a lot. Second only really to government and healthcare. So, and I also like to say, and I should have said this at the top, our job is to promote the state, but we're promoting the brand experiences that everybody in this room and in your communities are creating. So we're not creating those experiences. You folks are the Vermont brand that people come here to enjoy. And so I would just want to say thank you for all that you do, because what we do wouldn't make any difference at all if folks weren't coming here and having an amazing time. So there's... in terms of other, and these are very high-level numbers, I realize that, but just, again, looking at employment, we haven't quite come back from the pandemic, but we're about 8% down from where we were in 2019. But we can also see we've actually had a pretty good, we've seen a lot of growth in the blue here. So green is accommodations and food services, blue is arts, entertainment, and recreation. And we've seen year-over-year growth really excelling, especially in the outdoor rec sector, which again, I don't think that's a big surprise, but it's just nice to see the numbers pan out on that. And then one more, when we look at tax revenues, this is always a little bit tricky as to how we actually attribute certain tax revenues to visitors versus residents. So this slide really just focuses on those basic consumption taxes. We do use some calculations. Rooms tax, that's pretty easy to say, that's all visitors. Meals taxes is a little bit more complicated, but we have some formulas for that. And altogether, we're looking at about flat year over year from, what's that? So we're about the same level that we were in 2022, which is just over $200 million in taxes that come from visitation. What's actually really more exciting is that, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but we've had a constraint on our resources. Again, not unique necessarily to us. Vermont again does a lot with a little, but I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. But we have received some funding from the Economic Development Administration, which was part of COVID recovery. So there was a special grant program. It's a different part of ARPA, but it really looked at the losses in travel and tourism that each state suffered as a result of the pandemic. And a state grant was calculated proportional to those losses. For Vermont, that was $10.4 million that we received. And with that money, we've been spending the last few years figuring out how we can really make investments that will service our economy and our industry for the years to come. One of the places that we have, and I will talk about it a little bit more, but one of the places that we've been focusing on is research and economic impact, because that's one place where we really feel is our role as a state agency to advocate for the power of tourism to bring folks here to fuel our local economies. And so it's not ready just yet, but in September we will have a whole new set of economic impact reports. We will actually be able to do that down to the regional level, and we'll be doing that not just for 2023, but we're able to go back to 2019, 2022, and so forth, and we'll be able to do a trend over time. We used to be able to do benchmark reports that were similar, but we haven't been able to do one since 2017. So it's really exciting that we're able to do that research. We're also going to have a forward-facing data dashboard that will have a lot of these numbers available to folks at any time to really interested to see where we are in terms of visitor spending and so forth. Okay, so I was going to move on to basically what we do. As I mentioned, we promote the states. When we think about, I'll get into, we do a whole bunch of different tactics, but thankfully, after, I won't even tell you how long, we have a brand new website. So all of the money that we put into our paid advertising points back to VermontVacation.com. We were able to finally complete that a week after the eclipse this year. We're really pleased about that, and one of the parts of it that we are most happy about, and I'll just say that was 100 pages of new content, new photography throughout. The site is over 300 pages in all. We did, crowdsource photography and so forth from our partners, so thank you for anybody who helped us with that. But one of the areas that we really are pleased about is we have a whole new region section. And one of those regions, of course, that we highlight is the Okemo Valley. So we now now have, what we think is a much more robust content hub that we will be building out over time to talk specifically about Okemo Valley as other regions as well, to really be able to tell the specific story that you folks have to tell. And that includes, this is a project that we partner with Yankee Magazine on. So they helped do something, so we have a narrative, we have a map, I didn't capture a picture of that, but they also, Yankee has helped us curate top 5 things to do in each season. Right now it's just a list of top 5 things to do. As we build that out, those will each lead to individual pages on their own that will highlight those activities that you can have here in the Okemo Valley. We also have the 72 hours in the Okemo Valley itinerary that the Vermont Chamber did last year. And then for each region, we're doing them, a couple a month at a time. We'll be doing a email marketing campaign through Yankee Magazine. We also are creating videos for every region, and we are creating social content that will come out next spring. So a lot more to come for Okemo and for other folks. So we're pretty excited about that as one of our initiatives. In terms of other work that we're doing on making sure that Vermont stays top of mind for visitors, our 2024 campaign, this runs from May through October. Our budget was $750,000 this year. That is thanks to EDA. We always use a wide variety of tactics, which you can kind of see here. Kind of looking down at the funnel, basically our job is really to promote Vermont as an idea, top of the funnel, to get folks to think about Vermont, and then as we push folks further down the funnel, they may think about where exactly they want to go, and that's where great partners like Carol come into place to make sure that we can make sure that folks are considering Okemo in particular, the Valley. But as you can see here, we have a lot of investment. Sorry.
There's some water there too.
Yeah, no, beer's better.
Beer's
Beer's way better. Well, try as well the book.
It's icy, but excuse me, I'm sorry about that. We are going with a lot of video tactics this summer, but we also do, of course, do digital display advertising. High impact units are kind of more interactive units that we do on social media and other digital platforms, email marketing and so forth. So a whole variety of tactics, but we did focus heavily, and as you can see, we're very excited that you will see Ads for Vermont streaming on Amazon Prime, Hulu, ESPN, and YouTube TV this summer, which is very exciting for us. And part of that is because we were able to work with Matador Network last fall on creating a series of 3 new videos, and they really each take a little bit of a different way to tell the Vermont story. The first video we put together, and I know it's called Vermont is a Vibe. We worked with Phil the Culture. He's an influencer who really focuses on positivity and trying new experiences, and he just has a very infectious personality. I'm not going to play these for you today, but they are on our YouTube channel if you'd like to check them out. That was the first one. He spent time in the northern part of the state. The second one, road tripping through Vermont's Green Mountains. We did a partnership with Sophia Jaramillo, who's a National Geographic photographer. She did a road trip down the Spine through 100, went fishing, mountain biking, and hiking. And in her video, she weaves in some of the leave no trace messaging. So we do want to, kind of think about destination stewardship and what that means to be a responsible tourist and respecting the work that we all do to preserve our natural resources. That's the second video, and then the third one is called Vermont's Got Spirit, and that's where we were down in the southern part of the state, and that one really focuses on different people talking about basically what Vermont means to them. And they have all performed really well so far. As you can see, they each have about 300,000 views so far. I neglect to mention, but the campaign so far, we've already received about 30 million impressions. And so by the end of July, we should be at 1 million impressions just for these videos alone. And it's going to be we also contracted to do a brand lift study based on these videos to see basically what resonates with folks, what we can learn from that for future campaigns and so forth. So that's exciting to see that they're all performing well, but it's also interesting for us to see what kind of messages respond, what kind of visitors respond to different kind of messages, because of course we know that not all visitors are alike, and so different content is going to appeal to different people, so we've really tried to diversify our messaging in that way. Okay, and then I should have said that before, I'm happy to take any questions. There's a huge body of work, so I wasn't quite sure what you guys wanted to hear about or not, but So I mentioned EDA. So in terms of this investments that we are making as a state in leaning into visitation, I mentioned that research is one of the areas where we are making investments. We have not been able to do this kind of research in, I don't want to tell you how long, but the last time we did visitation research was literally 10 years ago. So that's one of the projects that we are starting on this fall. We are going to be doing intercept surveys throughout the state. So that's one area where we would love it if folks are interested in potentially hosting a survey taker at your location, or even if you have ideas of places where we should place survey takers. When this kind of research was last done in 2014, the state leaned on state properties like state parks and state historic sites and their visitor centers, which is fine, but we really want to make sure that we capture a broad representation of visitors who come to the state. So it's one very specific area.
We'll do it.
If you have ideas, maybe funnel them through Carol. Carol, let us know, how we can best capture the folks who come to the Okemo Valley and what they're interested in. So we are launching that this fall. We will be doing it in each season, and we will have a statewide report as well as regional reports. Economic impact, I mentioned, we will be doing that. We are also doing a breakout specifically for the economic impact of outdoor recreation. I mentioned the data dashboard. This asset creation and marketing implementation, that's really why we've been able to do the campaigns that we were to do last summer and this summer with the budget levels that we have. It's thanks to this, but we are investing in photography, video B-roll, the kinds of things that when we don't have this money anymore, we can still lean back on and we'll have those assets to work from. And then the last one on this side is, as impactful as this money has been for us as a department to service the state as a whole as best we can, we wanted to make sure that we were able to do that for regions as well, and for all other tourism partners. So we launched what we affectionately called our T-term grants, which is Transformational Tourism and Regional Events Marketing grants at the annual Tourism Summit in May. I'm just going to, quick shout out. If folks are interested, we always do have an annual Tourism Summit. Next year, it's the last week in April. It is in Burlington this year. We travel around the state. I really encourage folks to come. We are really concentrating on a robust one-day program hopefully this year. It's going to be a little bit shorter, but hopefully we'll make it a little easier for people to make the time. So if you are interested in these kind of updates from the department, that's a great time to come up and check it out. But so we were able to, we had a lot of demand for this program. We had $6 million in ask for $1.25 million that we had available. We received a very good proposal from this region. Haven't crossed all the T's and dotted the I's yet, but thank you, Carol. You'll be, but I can't say it publicly yet, but I just did. And then in terms of what is still to come, a couple more projects that we have up next. We are working on how we can support basically talent pipelines. We have a couple of workforce projects. We're working with UVM on a hospitality management certificate program, which is going to include a hands-on capstone project for students who participate in that hopefully they can kind of jumpstart their careers in hospitality, as well as working on some outdoor recreation boot camps. So this would be for trail builders, training trail builders, bike mechanics, and ski mechanics, to really make sure that we have that workforce who can then support the visitor economy that we're talking about. And then one that I'm very excited about, we are actually going to be able to do some strategic planning. So we'll be putting together, and this is where in our industry we're really moving from this continuum of destination marketing to destination management to destination stewardship. And that's really looking at how the visitor economy can really, as much as we can service our visitors, but how that can raise the quality of life for residents as well, and how we make sure that we get that balance right between the needs of our visitors and the needs of our residents, and basically what that looks like as we go through the next 5 to 10 years to make sure that we continue to have a robust economy that serves us all. So there should be many opportunities for folks to get involved in that as well, so I encourage you, if you are interested in helping us with that, and we'll make sure we funnel that information through Carol. And then just briefly, we will be ending up with, once we have this visitation research and some of these other findings, we're also going to be doing a brand study, which has been even longer since we've been able to do a brand study, that will then culminate into potentially a new identity system and a campaign for Vermont that we'll be able to use going forward. So that's kind of I apologize, I didn't time it. that's pretty much a broad stroke of what we've been up to. I didn't mention we are also, restarting our international marketing campaigns. So if there's anyone in the room in the lodging industry who wants to learn more about hosting international visitors, there's a lot more flexibility in that these days than there used to be. We also are, as I mentioned, we're involved in relocation efforts. So we are helping different communities, both service leads we get through our the thinkvermont.com site. When folks are interested in moving to Vermont, we're able to ask people where they want to move to, and then those leads are funneled down to the region. So we've been able to create a grant program that supports that lead generation and the concierge level service that hopefully regions can provide once folks raise their hand and say they are interested in coming to Vermont. And then also to be able to do outreach events as well, so that we are able to really help create, when folks do move here, are really thinking about retention as well as recruitment, so folks really feel welcome in their communities. So I think I'll stop there, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or again, apologies if I went too long or otherwise.
No, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. You're doing a lot of great work, so congratulations
Thank
to
you.
you and the team. I think part of the Vermont experience that you talked about is the wonderful architecture and old homes that we have in Vermont. They're really very special, and I think folks that want to stay in there really experience Vermont through the old homes. My partners and I own the 1828 Reunion House in Chester, Vermont. And that was set up as pretty much a ski house back in the late 60s. And it's been a short-term rental for essentially 60 years. About a year ago, Chester wanted all the short-term rentals to fill out an application and have an inventory of those. And that entailed a fire marshal inspection. He shut us down. We lost $30,000 of income. I've now spent $65,000 getting in compliance with the fire marshal, only to find out that Chester has now passed, they've doubled the registration fee from $300 to $600 for short-term rental. The Vermont legislature has increased short-term rentals tax.
By 3%.
And in addition to all that, they say that if I were to sell that house, which is definitely set up as a rental, the people that buy it can't rent it for a year. So that totally devalues the 20 years, 22 years of restoration that the house was essentially dilapidated when I bought it. And I've spent 22 years restoring it, $65,000 for the fire marshal, and now I'm just getting hit 9 ways to Sunday as a short-term rental. And I love what you're doing on tourism, but how can you shut down, the towns shut down the short-term rentals, and the legislature is shutting down the short-term rentals? I think this is part of the Vermont experience, and I really think that as the leader of tourism, you've got to push back on these people that are doing this.
Yeah, so we're so fun to be part of state government and try and explain why government does what it does. Because I am 100% sympathetic. I truly am. If you're not already, I would encourage you to get involved with the Vermont Short-Term Rental Alliance. I don't know if you know Julie Marks. She's the head of that organization. She is a wonderful advocate for short-term rentals. I would say that the conversation in Montpelier, and by that I mean the legislature, is very charged. I think we all can, as much as we can say we know how much visitation and tourism brings to the state, we also know we have a housing crisis. There are folks who would love to demonize short-term rentals and say that's the problem. I will be the first to say that is not the problem. Short-term rentals are 3% of our housing stock. The housing crisis took 30 years in the making. We're not going to solve that on 3% of our housing stock. So I understand. I also can tell you that it's not 50-50, but it's about 50-50 is the amount of where our visitors stay, short-term rentals versus commercial lodging establishments. Where and when we can best make that argument is, I would say, is kind of a little bit of a work in progress as we get better data, which we've been doing through our economic impact as well as the data. We now are able to get more short-term rental data than we've had in the past, as have Department of Housing. So my compatriots within the Agency of Commerce is also the Department of Housing. And all this is just to say, do I have the perfect solution for you? No. Can I tell you that there's going to be a statewide solution anytime soon? Probably not. So like town to town, that's local control, that's difficult, right? Sometimes you're on an easier side of that than others. But making sure that the legislature knows the power of tourism and what it means if you shut down businesses and you're on the, I would say, the wrong side of personal property rights. I think it's a hard message, but we're there with you. I don't know if I can tell you anything that would make you feel better about that, other than I'm happy to talk more with you, but I think that I would just let you know that there are people who really do understand. We actually had Senator Rand Hinsdale, who's the chair of Senate Economic Development. She came to our Travel Recreation Council meeting last week. We have those every 2 weeks. She heard some of the same information. She was one of the ones who was championing this like kind of grand bargain between Act 250 reform, which really should help with our housing stock, and understanding the power of the visitor economy. So I think it's really just a question of, I don't want to say it's all politics as to when we might see a change, but I would say the conversation is going in a good direction. Sorry, that was a long rambling explanation because I know it's very complicated, but that's. But I'm happy to talk more about it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you working on it because it's really, after investing that money for the fire marshal, and then all these things hit at the same time. It's just so disappointing. I want to feel welcome in Vermont because I love Vermont. I want my clients to feel welcome in Vermont because it's a very magical state. And it's a magical house. I'd love to have one visit.
I would love that. Anybody else want to put me on the hot seat?
Non-politically charged question. Earlier you were talking about the videos that you were representing Vermont. And, what is impressions? When you said I saw the views.
Yeah.
What is an impression?
So impressions is basically, is somebody served that? Do they see that either in, when you're surfing around the web, and so it's like.
Do you want another glass of beer?
So it's a combination of both. So when I sort of showed this slide of our tactics, so connected TV. So that's like, so most of these are non-skippable units. So you can hate us advertisers when you're like, I can't believe I have to sit through that ad. So some of those impressions are coming from non-skippable units that are basically on streaming services. Some that are coming from online video. So that's when you're on YouTube and you might say you might like, or you're on some DV360 really works kind of like search. So it might be served up to you. So basically it's like, are we getting eyeballs on that video?
Right. So it could be like a like or a view or just an ad that's on TV.
Yes.
Any combination.
Any combination of that. And then as we get farther into the campaign, we'll have view completion rates, we'll have, like how many people viewed it and how many people clicked through, exactly. So the nice thing with non-skippable units is that we basically are almost guaranteed 100% view completion rate. But we will also get, click-through rates and so forth, and then what kind of conversions do we have on the website. I mean, that's something that's just like is always interesting for us, is that we don't have the benefit of like an immediate conversion, which is like I booked a hotel room or I bought a ski ticket. So we're always kind of using proxies for that, and so that might be newsletter signups, or it might be, did they visit 3 or more pages on the site, did they sign up for the newsletter? But when the campaign completes, then we will have much more detailed information than just impressions or click-throughs.
Excuse me, sounds like you're getting a little close.
Valley served.
Will this campaign also collect information such as demographic information such as age, sex, race, things like that?
We're not allowed basically to well, 2 things, I guess. So when we do targeting, we're targeting on behavior. Yeah, I do have to drive home. When we do targeting, we're targeting on behavior. We're not targeting on age or any other, behavior and geographic. So behavior, interest, geographic is how we do our targeting in terms of, is there an intent to travel? Are people interested in outdoor recreation? Are basically our brand pillars as to what, food and drink and so forth. But in terms of what information we get back, we are able to build audiences through, we do some research through Resonate, which is part of the Meta platform, so Instagram, Facebook, and so forth, we're able to see what interests people have, which is basically how we find them, and we build like lookalike audiences, so they were interested in our ad, they interacted with it, so then we see how can we find more people like them. And so within that, there is some of that information that is aggregated, but we don't know in specific individuals, but we do see basic age groups, and then we can say, okay, let's find more people like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what regions or like states are they mostly nearby? Are we doing?
So we do both. Great question. So we look at both direct, we call them direct and distant markets. So direct markets, think like DC, and then all the way up the eastern seaboard where we're within a drive market. So we look at depending on the tactic, it might be like a 50-50 split between distant and direct, or it might be 1/3, 2/3. When we're looking at distant markets, then we're thinking nationally, we don't have a budget to put the same amount of money into every state. So normally for our direct markets, we are looking at the state. When we're looking at more distant markets, we're looking at the DMAs. So we're like, we can't do all of California, but we can look at LA, we can look at San Francisco. And then we also adjust our campaign depending on what time of year it is. So we'll put more money into distant markets earlier in the planning kind of booking window, because we know if we can get folks in May, they may come here in August, September, October. But by the time we get to just about now, we're actually switching it. By the time it gets to be August, yes, we want to plant the seed for next year, so we're not like turning it off, but we just shift the percentage so that we're focusing more on direct markets as we get near the end, quote unquote, of the current season. And then we do look at markets a little bit differently in the winter. So the summer visitation is a much broader audience for us to reach. It's a much longer period of time. Folks have off. Winter's just a little bit more specific. I mean, some people love to, recreate when it's 20 below. Some people don't. I don't know why, but so we do look at it a little bit differently, and it's just a little bit of a different strategy because, now that we have the Icon Epic passes, there is a reason for folks who might be out west, quote unquote, to come east, but it's still a little bit of a harder proposition to get folks to say, come on a plane to come to Vermont if you're in Colorado and you can go to your own 15 ski areas. So all that to say that we do look at different factors like that when we are putting together what tactics, where they're going to go, depending on the season, and so forth. Yes?
I'd like to put in a plug for one factor that Vermont has, which is covered bridges. And we are representing the Vermont Covered Bridge Society.
Awesome.
We have joined.
Yeah.
We have joined the regional chamber in Okemo Valley, which is a brand new thing for us. But we're going to be celebrating our 25th year as a nonprofit in Vermont next year. So we're very interested in doing things to bring people's attention to not only our society but the covered bridges in Vermont. Vermont ranks number 3 in the United States, as you probably know, for the number of covered bridges, with Pennsylvania being first, Ohio being second, and Vermont being third. However, Vermont takes the number 1 spot in the number of bridges per square mile.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And so this is something that is a resource that we should capitalize on as Vermonters and as we're drawing tourists to Vermont.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now, hopefully I have the stat right. We have exactly 100 covered bridges?
We have technically 96 and 3 that are interstate that go across New Hampshire, across the Connecticut. So we call it 100 because it's easy for us. We have a 100 bridge club that's embedded in our website. But the technical answer is 99.
All right, yeah, we got to build another one, right? We just got to. 1 second. So I would say we do talk about covered bridges. Covered bridges is one of the points that really appeals to our international visitors. So when we're talking about, why Vermont versus say New Hampshire, Maine to somebody from the UK or someplace else, we definitely lean into that. And what that reminds me is, and I would say this goes to anybody and everybody in terms of, you were mentioning the architecture and so forth. I'm the first one to say, we don't know what we don't know, right? So like if you have content ideas, if you have photography that you think would help sell the state, please, we are more than happy to, let us know what's new. Let us know. Carol's a great, like I said, great advocate for this region. She can be an amazing resource to make sure that we understand what is it that we should be talking about for Okemo Valley. And anyway, that's the way we can really do our job the best. So, and if you see stuff on the website, again, I'm not going to say we got it all right. Tell us, hey, you missed an opportunity to do this. I can't promise that we're going to do everything, but we'll certainly listen to any idea. So happy to do that. So somebody over here.
I just wondered what kind of focus, if any, there is on summer camps. I have not looked at your website, so I don't know if when you're targeting things, if summer camps are part of that.
Yeah, interesting. It's come up in the past. I would say it's not an exact focus. I mean, we have lots of, we have like a list of like content ideas. So I would say that summer camps kind of lives there at the moment. I think it would be, I would love to know more about how we could best talk about that. It's something that has come up actually in some of the relocation work. We did.
Because you have hundreds of adults who bring their children to camp, and how you can somehow entice them to stick around for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice to, have some conversations with camp administrators and so forth, say like, how can we reach those people? Like, do we need to have information that we can give to you, that you can give to folks? Are folks, like, if you're reaching out to, like, that's a very niche audience, which is great in the fact that if you have that direct line of communication, how can we make sure that you're pointing people to Vermont Vacation and so forth?
Well, the Vermont Camp Association might be a good thing for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Are you tracking the impact of the arts in Vermont? It's not a separate category.
Yeah, so arts are included in the leisure and hospitality supersector. So they are that blue line I showed when I talked about employment, so they are part of that. In terms of the economic impact of the arts, we definitely work with the Vermont Arts Council quite a bit. I sit on the steering committee for the Vermont Creative Network and was involved in that. They just did an AEP survey for economic impact. I have not committed to memory, I'm sorry, those numbers. We do have it on our website as the economic impact that comes from the arts. When we think about our pillars, we think about arts, food and beverage, outdoor rec, and basic cultural heritage, sort of like what makes Vermont special. And so it's always sort of on our mind as to like part of the mix. So I would say as we advocate for the industry, we have some information. We're not doing that because the Arts Council is doing the actual calculation. But I think I've actually been very encouraged to see how the creative economy has been recognized in general.
Is it being promoted through your videos?
Yes, I would say that one of the locations for Vermont Scout Spirit was at Southern Vermont Arts Center in Manchester, and we try and weave it in wherever we can. We do, one of the most visited pages on our website is actually our outdoor sculpture page. It's a great opportunity for folks. And so whenever we're doing, we include it as one of our pillars. So if we're doing like an itinerary.
Also music.
Yes, the arts in general. So you'll see if you do go on the website that we have quite a bit on performing arts, as well as galleries, as well as, like I said, outdoor arts and so forth. But if we're missing anything, all right, one more?
Please.
Okay.
So I was glad to hear that the budget was increased for the Department of Tourism. What I've heard, most of my life is spent in the hospitality industry, but how do we compare that budget for Vermont compared to the surrounding states, that are fighting for that same tourist? Do you have a sense of how much Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, they pay to grab that same audience?
It's depressing. It's a lot. Our total budget is 4.5. Like I said, $1 million specifically just for relocation. So 3.5. 3.5 is all in. That's salaries, that's everything. So that leaves us about $2 million for paid advertising. All in New Hampshire is about 10. Maine is 17. Now Maine is 17 and Portland, Maine just did a tourism improvement district, which is going to probably bring in an additional $20 million a year for them. Meet Boston, they just did a tourism improvement district in Boston, which is, this is a financing tax structure, which we've been told if you look at all the states and the likelihood of us getting that, the consultants who do that gave Vermont a double red light as to how likely we could do that. I think Meet Boston's, I think their budget is about $50 million. State of Massachusetts is, I think, around $20 million. And I don't know off the top of my head their own regions, but you know, like Cape Cod and the Islands, they have their own budget. So one of the things that's unique about Vermont, which is we love Vermont because it's like one big small town, but not only is our state budget smaller, but we don't have DMOs that have, so destination marketing organizations that are on a local level that also have budgets. And so that's, when we compare them apples to apples, it's depressing. And I will be the first, and I have said this in committee, it costs us the same amount to put an ad on TV in Boston as it does to New Hampshire and Maine. You know, so you can slice and dice it with like per capita or whatever you want to say that like, oh, well, they've got a different tax base. The fact of the matter is, ads cost money, we have less money. Sorry for that depressing note to end on, but I like to think that we do a pretty good job with what we have. We have an amazing product to sell, and that is because of everybody here. So I think I'll end it on that.
I think the moral of that story is roll up your sleeves and pitch in. So when we need someone to go to the Big E, volunteers, and there's benefits for volunteers that join in. You get to bring your marketing materials, so there's those kinds of opportunities. Heather has a travel recreation council. There's other opportunities. So in order for Vermont to be successful, we're small and mighty. We need to pitch in. Thank you, Heather. Outstanding. She does an amazing job of giving everybody the love. I don't know how she does it. And as she said, I'm an advocate for Okemo Valley, no doubt. I'm also an advocate for the state of Vermont. Thank you. Right. Leah, could you assist me, please? So we are moving on to agenda item for awards and recognition. So we have awards and recognition going on. It's going to start with Leah and I handling a few. I'm going to call up a couple of folks, a group of 3 in fact. So 2 of the people have been tremendously helpful, just in general, super positive, hardworking people helping us with the summer festival. And the other person is helping with the summer festival, but generally is available to answer any question the Chamber of Commerce might have. So Sue Chadwick, would you come up, please? Sean Kershaw, come on up. Selena.
Yes, so we just wanted to thank you all for the extraordinary volunteer support that you provide the Chamber and all of our membership. And thank you for taking the initiative and for being on call for everything and anything, and incredibly grateful for these 3, so thank you.
Okay, so I'm not a Vermonter, I'm from South Jersey. So I got a different attitude, okay? But I meet people in Vermont all the time, and mostly in bars. And every time I meet somebody that I think is interesting and that I think is fun, I get their phone number. And I kid you not, I get their phone number and I say, you have a person in Vermont now. You know somebody who lives in Vermont. And I encourage people to come to Vermont all the time, mostly permanently, okay? And we can all do that. We can, maybe not in bars, okay, but that's just my venue, okay? But we can all do that. We can all invite people to Vermont, invite people to this amazing place that we live. And they'll come. They'll come. They will. And I have so many people that I say, you know somebody in Vermont now, and you didn't know that an hour ago, okay? And they might not remember after that, but that's a whole different thing, okay? So anyway, we can all invite people to Vermont because it's so amazing. It's such an amazing place. And I'm gonna tap in to Karen just because I call myself an ambassador for Vermont, and I just want like a little bar budget, just tiny bar budget, you know? Like, I don't think that's unreasonable. Do you? Right.
I don't get a bar.
That's you. We can all do it. That's my point.
I'll just take the mic back. No. Thank you, ladies. You're welcome. Thank you.
So I have a few more awards to give out for, who am I going to? So these individuals, let me just see all for a minute. Oh, okay. Yeah. So this really comes from the whole Okemo Valley Disaster Fund Committee. And the first person on that committee that we'd like to give an award to is Kathy Burns. Kathy was representing Crown Point Board of Realtors and doing a lot with the residential money that we gave out. She was instrumental in that. Thank you. Well, the next person that we want to acknowledge, and everyone knows him, and he better get his butt in here, he can't hear me, is Tom Gianola. Tom. Tom's leadership really helped us with donating the money where it needed to go, and Tom was a big part of that. Disaster relief.
All right, Tina, you're going to have to pay me to come on stage for 3 gorgeous women. Yes, dear.
Come right up here, Tom.
Yes, ma'am.
Take your flag.
What am I?
You helped significantly with the disaster relief, and that's what
That was
this
so
is
much
for.
fun.
I know, it's fun. Thank you so much for
Yeah, we're
everything
happy to
you
do
did.
it. But I have to say, I went into this with a lot of reluctance because there was kind of a, a divide between what should go to private homeowners and what should go to small businesses. And I was the only small business person there. So I was kind of vocal, which probably doesn't surprise most of you, about, if we don't have small businesses, we don't have jobs. If we don't have jobs, we don't have people to work here, we can attract anybody else in the community. Let's help everybody. So what we did was we raised, I think it was close to $500,000, and we gave it out to everybody. So that's pretty incredible. Half of that came in the first 10 days. So it was a task. The only reason, there's just one reason I was elected the president, and that was because I didn't come to the meeting. I was here bailing out water in the basement because we had 8.5 feet of water in the basement. It was, little area here was the epicenter of the flood. We had 14 inches in 10 hours. It was horrific. Things weren't good, but we recovered, and we did very well. So I'm proud to say, the team, the community. I'll tell you a little story just to dwell on and keep you away from the bar. George, are you open over there, George? Okay, so if I'm boring the crap out of you, go see George, and he'll take care of you a nice cocktail. But, so at 5:30 in the morning, I decided I'd had enough on Monday. I believe it was July 10th, was a Sunday. 5:30, I said, that's it, I'm done. And I went back. I live in a little 2-bedroom apartment really close to the inn. I'm not going to tell you where because apparently too many people know. So at 6:30, believe it or not, I'm older than 40, so I was going to the bathroom, and there's this sound on my window, and I look out, and there's this woman rapping at the window, and I just said, okay, I'm having a nightmare. This is bad. And I look outside, and here's this wonderful lady who, for 4 or 5 years, had been coming down the road and saying, I'd like to be your housekeeper. I'd like to work for you. She's 76 years old. She can't barely get around, but she wanted to come and help me and recover, and I just said, okay. But she was there, and obviously she put on her makeup in the dark, because she kind of looked like Bozo. Her lipstick was up on her cheeks, her mascara was all over her face, and it was one of the scariest things I've ever had in my life. My dog was like, I don't know what this is, but it's scary. So I calmed Cujo down, and I kind of said, what's happening? And she said, well, Tom, you got to get up. And I said, why? And she just said, well, there's 35 people here outside your window looking to help you, and they need some direction. They need to know what they need to do. I slept a total of an hour, and I just said, okay, I'm up. I'm going to go out, and we're going to figure this out. But she was vehement. She was like, they got front-end loaders, they got graders, they got all kinds of pumps and shovels and implements of destruction. It was like, okay, whatever you want. We're just going to get up, and we're going to make this happen. But 5 days later, we were up and running. So that was pretty incredible because that's the community we live in. It's a little community. Tyson is 92 people in the town of Plymouth, which is 855. It's kind of scary, but that's the same number of people that were here when Calvin Coolidge was born. I'm not sure if that's good or that's bad, but that's the same freaking number of people that were here in the 1920s. I think I'm like the third youngest person in Plymouth. They're probably the same people here now that were here when Calvin Coolidge was alive. And some of them are here tonight. I'm not sure where. But, so that's my story. But, I think the community here is strong. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm very proud to be part of the Vermont community. I can't claim that I was born here. My parents were, but, you come back for a reason. And Vermont needs more young people. So echoing what our speaker said tonight, if we can get more people here from 30 to 60 that want to work and have a good time and raise their families, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. I would not have been able to. So we do have another award I'd like to give out tonight, and this is to also another member of the Okemo Valley Disaster Fund Committee, Suzanne Garvey, and she is not here tonight, but I understand that, oh my God, I understand that Julie is going to be accepting this award for Suzanne. Thank you. Thank you, Julie. You don't want to speak, Julie? No.
the Disaster Fund Committee was an idea that we put together a little bit late in our planning for tonight. So folks generally did not, Gail, you're not done yet.
Oh, I'm not? Oh.
A couple more things. So I wanted to highlight that the committee, the Okemo Valley Disaster Fund Committee, is made up of 9 people who started work on disaster relief shortly after last year's flood, and it's still going on. We're hoping to close out the fund any time now. Marielle Marangelo from Okemo Mountain School, Suzanne Garvey, Thomas Ray, and he's with Ludlow Area Rotary, Kathy Burns from William Ravis, Jeffrey Billings, our chief in Ludlow, Ann Brown, and I forget her not-for-profit's name, somebody probably knows it. She's also associated with the town of Plymouth, Brendan McNamara, town of Ludlow manager, Tom Gianola, Steve Shaw with Outer Limits Brewing, all have been hard at work on that committee. We have another person and group to be recognized.
Yes, separately from that, Kelly Stetner and the Mud Puppies. We'd really like to recognize them. They dug in on a different level. There you go, Kelly. Thank you so much for everything that you did.
I do want to say a whole lot of things, a lot of thank yous to a lot of people. So, and I'm going to forget half of them, and I'm going to break up my voice a million different ways. So thank you guys all so very much. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.
So I'm Sheena. I am very honored to give this next award to someone right here on the stage. So our very own Gail. I'm ecstatic to give you this award. And it's to thank you and Eagle Invokers for your membership, participation, and continued engagement in the Okemo Valley. And we would like to extend a special recognition for hosting the Disaster Business Response Center with FEMA, SBA, and the Department of Labor at your location. And the Ludlow Children.
Carol, you get up the end, and you stay up there.